The Thalorian research vessel, Stellar Echo, floated dead in space, surrounded by the most dangerous region in the known galaxy. Captain Yelthra pressed her six-fingered hand against the cold metal wall of the bridge and felt the vibrations. That should have been there. The steady hum of engines, the gentle pulse of life support systems working at full capacity. Instead, she felt nothing but silence. "How long do we have?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would be bad. Her chief engineer, a thin Thalorian with pale blue skin marked by worry lines, looked up from his diagnostic panel. His large, dark eyes held no hope. 47 hours of breathable air, Captain. Maybe 50 if we reduce activity to minimum levels. Yelthra nodded slowly. Around her, 8 other crew members went about their duties with the quiet efficiency of people who knew they were probably going to die. No panic, no dramatic speeches, just the calm acceptance that came with choosing a life among the stars. The Stellar Echo had been conducting routine scientific surveys when the quantum cascade failure hit. One moment they were scanning an interesting nebula formation. The next moment every major system on the ship had gone dark. Emergency power kept the lights on and the air flowing, but that was about it. "The Nexus Void," muttered Mordan from the tactical station. He was younger than the others, still new enough to space travel that the danger felt unreal. Of all the places to break down. "Send another distress signal," Yelthra ordered, knowing it was pointless but unable to stop trying. The Nexus Void earned its name honestly. Electromagnetic storms swept through the region like cosmic hurricanes, twisting radio waves into useless static. Gravitational anomalies appeared without warning, crushing unwary ships or flinging them into the nearest sun. No civilized species came here voluntarily. The few survey missions that had attempted to map the region never returned. Even the military avoided it. What was the point of claiming territory that would kill anyone stupid enough to visit? "Signal sent, Captain," reported the communications officer. "But the interference is getting worse. Even if someone receives it, they won't be able to get a clear location lock." Yelthra walked to the main view screen and stared out at the twisted space around them. Streams of energy danced between invisible gravity wells, creating a light show that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Instead, each flash reminded her that they were trapped in a cosmic death trap. She thought about her family back on Thaloria Prime. Her mate would be expecting her return message soon. Their offspring were just old enough to understand that Mommy went to dangerous places for work, but young enough to believe she would always come home safe. "Keep sending the beacon," she said quietly, "every 30 minutes, and monitor all frequencies. If anyone is crazy enough to be out here, I want to know about it." The bridge fell into the rhythm of waiting. Outside, the Nexus Void continued its deadly dance of energy and gravity, beautiful and terrible and completely indifferent to the small ship drifting helplessly within its embrace. Time crawled by, marked only by the steady countdown of their remaining life support. 46 hours, 45, each minute bringing them closer to the end. 18 hours had passed since the Stellar Echo first went dark. Captain Yelthra sat in her command chair watching the life support numbers tick downward with mechanical precision. 29 hours of air remained. Her crew moved quietly around the bridge, conserving energy and oxygen while maintaining their hopeless vigil. The distress beacon continued its automated pulse every 30 minutes, sending their coordinates into the electromagnetic chaos of the Nexus Void. Each transmission felt like throwing a message in a bottle into a hurricane, but they kept trying anyway. What else could they do? Communications Officer Tel Win looked up from her station with surprise. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange." "A define strange," Yelthra said, not daring to hope. "It looks like a response signal, but it's coming from inside the void, not from civilized space." The bridge went completely silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned toward the communications station. Telwyn adjusted her equipment, frowning at readings that didn't make sense. The signal is crude, almost primitive compared to standard galactic protocols, but it's definitely artificial, and it's getting stronger. Static filled the bridge speakers, crackling and popping as Telwyn tried to clean up the transmission. Slowly, impossibly, a voice emerged from the cosmic noise. It spoke in broken galactic standard, the words rough and unfamiliar, but unmistakably intelligent. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Kim of the human ship Iron Will. We got your distress call. Hang tight, we're coming to get you. The words hung in the air like something from a fever dream. Yelthra felt her heart skip a beat. Around her, the crew exchanged bewildered glances. Humans, whispered Morden. What are humans? Telwyn was already running the name through their databases, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. Nothing, Captain. No species in our records matches that designation. No Iron Will registered in any fleet database either. The sea voice crackled through the speakers again, clearer this time. We're tracking your beacon through the interference. Should reach you in about 12 hours. Keep your engines cold and don't try any fancy maneuvering. The gravity wells are shifting fast today. Yelthra found her voice. This is Captain Yelthra, of the Thalorian vessel Stellar Echo. Who are you people? How are you navigating the Nexus Void? A sound came through the speakers that took her a moment to identify. Laughter. Actual laughter, as if someone had just told a mildly amusing joke. The Void? That's what you call this place. We just call it the shortcut. Been using this route for years. Don't worry, Captain. We've pulled ships out of worse spots than this. The casual confidence in that voice was staggering. While every known species in the galaxy treated the Nexus Void as an impassable death zone, these mysterious humans spoke about it like it was a busy highway. Impossible, breathed the chief engineer. Nothing can navigate through those gravitational anomalies. The electromagnetic interference alone should prevent any kind of accurate positioning, but the signal was getting steadily stronger, which meant their rescuers were getting closer. Somehow, against every law of physics and common sense, someone was actually coming for them. Telwyn monitored the approaching ship's trajectory, her expression growing more amazed by the hour. Captain, they're not avoiding the gravity wells. They're using them. Riding the gravitational currents like they were designed for this. Hope began to bloom in Yelthra's chest for the first time since the breakdown. 12 hours later, the Stellar Echo's sensors detected an approaching vessel. What appeared on their screens defied every standard of proper ship construction that Yelthra had ever learned. The human ship. Iron Will looked like it had been built by someone who had never seen a proper starship blueprint. Hull plates of different colors and materials were welded together in seemingly random patterns. Extra. Thrusters jutted out at odd angles. Weapon systems that belonged to at least 6 different manufacturers were bolted onto the frame wherever they would fit. By the Void, muttered Chief Engineer Coldown. That thing shouldn't be able to fly, let alone navigate through here. But fly it did, moving through the deadly space around them with casual confidence. The ship twisted and rolled through gravitational fields that would have torn apart any normal vessel, its mismatched thrusters firing in sequences that somehow kept stable. Telwyn established visual contact, and Captain Kim's face appeared on their main screen. He was middle-aged, with weathered skin and dark hair streaked with grey. His eyes held no fear of the cosmic nightmare surrounding them, only the calm confidence of someone completely at home in his environment. "Well, you folks really got yourselves into a pickle," he said with a slight smile. His accent was unlike anything in their language databases. "Don't worry, though. We've pulled ships out of worse spots than this." Behind him, Yelthra could see his bridge crew working at stations that looked like they had been assembled from spare parts. A young woman with short black hair was plotting rescue courses through gravity fields that their computers labeled as instantly fatal. An older man was casually eating something from a small container while monitoring readings that would have sent any Thalorian engineer into panic. "Captain Kim," Yelthra began carefully, "we appreciate your response to our distress call. However, I must ask, how are you able to navigate through the Nexus Void? Our records show no known species has ever successfully mapped this region." Kim laughed, a warm sound that somehow made the deadly space around them seem less threatening. "Nexus Void? Is that what you call it?" "We just call it Route 7. Takes us straight to the outer rim markets without having to deal with all those customs checkpoints." The casual way he dismissed one of the galaxy's most feared regions left the Thalorian crew speechless. "Route 7? They use this place as a regular travel lane." Your ship appears to be— Yelthra paused, trying to find a diplomatic way to say it looked like junk. Uniquely constructed. She's not much to look at, Kim admitted proudly, but the iron will gets the job done. Lieutenant Lee there has been plotting our approach for the last 2 hours. We should have you hooked up and ready to tow within the next 6 hours. The woman he indicated, Lieutenant Lee Hana, looked up from her calculations and waved cheerfully. She was working with instruments that appeared to be held together with some kind of metallic tape, but her readings were more accurate than anything the Stellar Echo's advanced computers could produce. How is this possible? Morden whispered. Kim must have heard him because he grinned. Kid, when you've been running cargo through places like this for 15 years, you learn to make do with what works. Pretty isn't the same as functional. As if to prove his point, one of his crew members gave a stubborn control panel a firm smack with his hand. It immediately started working properly again. The rescue operation began 2 hours later, and everything about it violated every safety protocol Yelthra had ever learned. Instead of the careful, methodical approach that Thalorian engineering demanded, the humans attacked the problem with a combination of brute force and creative improvisation that should have gotten them all killed. They're doing what? Chief Engineer Koldan stared at his readings in disbelief. On the screen, they watched as the iron will maneuvered closer to their position. But instead of using precise gravitational calculations to navigate the deadly fields around them, the humans were setting off controlled explosions. Small charges fired from their ship pushed them through gravity wells that their computers couldn't even map properly. Engineer Choi Minho appeared on their communication channel, his coveralls stained with grease and his face cheerful. "Don't worry about the fireworks," he called over the noise of his engine room. "Just giving ourselves a little nudge through the rough spots." "That's insane," Mordan whispered. "One miscalculation and those explosions will tear both ships apart." But somehow it worked. Each carefully timed blast pushed the human ship exactly where it needed to go. What looked like reckless chaos was actually precise engineering. Just nothing like any engineering they'd ever seen before. The humans approached the rescue like they were solving a puzzle rather than performing a delicate operation. When their primary docking system couldn't get a clean connection through the electromagnetic interference, they simply rigged up an alternative using spare cables and what appeared to be a modified cargo clamp. "Is that construction equipment?" Telwyn asked, watching them work. "Mining gear, actually," replied Choi Minho, who was now floating outside his ship in a spacesuit that looked like it had been repaired with different colored patches. "Works great for ship-to-ship connections when you're in a hurry," the Thalorian. Crew watched in fascination and horror as Minho manually connected cables between the two vessels, working with tools that belonged in a construction site rather than a precision rescue operation. When one connection refused to hold, he simply hit it with a wrench until it clicked into place. "Percussive maintenance," he explained cheerfully when he saw their expressions. "Sometimes the best solution is the simplest one." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Lee Hana was piloting their ship through gravitational anomalies by manually overriding safety systems that other species considered sacred. Every few minutes, warning alarms would sound on the human bridge, and someone would casually reach over to shut them off. "Don't you trust your automated systems?" Yelthra asked during one particularly hair-raising maneuver. Captain Kim shrugged. "Computers are great for normal space, but out here you need to feel your way through. 30 years of flying teaches you things that no computer program can calculate." As if to prove his point, the iron will suddenly rolled hard to port, avoiding a gravity spike that hadn't shown up on any sensor reading. Kim had somehow sensed it coming through pure instinct and experience. The rescue took 14 hours, instead of the planned 6, but not because anything went wrong. The humans kept stopping to make improvements to their rigging, adding extra safety lines and backup systems that they invented on the spot. "Better safe than sorry," Minho explained, as he welded another support beam into place. "These old ships can be tricky. By the time they were ready to begin the tow, the humans had essentially rebuilt half of their rescue equipment using nothing but spare parts and determination." As the two ships moved slowly through the Nexus void, connected by an impressive tangle of cables and improvised equipment, the crews had plenty of time to talk. What started as routine status updates quickly became something much more interesting. a conversation between two completely different ways of thinking about the universe. "So you really travel through here regularly?" Yelthra asked during one of their scheduled check-ins. The idea still seemed impossible to her. Captain Kim nodded, sipping something hot from a metal cup. 3, maybe 4 times a month. It's the fastest route to the Kepler settlements, and the fuel savings are worth the extra navigation challenges. Navigator Song Ji-won leaned into view, holding up a hand-drawn star chart covered in notes and corrections. "We've been mapping safe passages through here for about 8 years now. Started when fuel prices went crazy, and we needed to find cheaper routes." The chart looked nothing like the precise digital maps that Thalorian ships used. Instead of clean lines and mathematical coordinates, it was covered in personal notes. Gravity spike on Tuesdays, good fishing spot, cosmic rays attract space. Whales avoid after solar storms, gets cranky. "You navigate by fishing spots?" Morden asked, his voice faint with disbelief. "Why not?" Song Ji-won grinned. "Space whales only show up where the gravitational currents are stable. If it's safe enough for a 100-ton whale, it's safe enough for us." The cultural differences went deeper than just navigation techniques. When Yelthra mentioned that the Stellar Echo was on a 3-year scientific mission, the humans looked puzzled. 3 years? Lieutenant Lee Hana shook her head. "That's a long time to be away from home. Don't you miss your families?" "It's necessary for proper research," Yelthra explained. "Deep space science requires extended observation periods." "Sure, but we do plenty of research too," said Choi Minho, appearing on screen with what looked like a sandwich in one hand and a wrench in the other. "Last month we discovered 2 new asteroid fields and mapped a pretty interesting nebula. Took us about a week." The Thalorians stared at him. "A week of research that would take their best scientists months to properly document and analyze." "How is that possible?" asked Chief Engineer Koldan. "Easy," Minho shrugged. "We take pictures, collect samples, make notes, then head home. Our families look at the data too. My daughter's really good with mineral analysis, and my wife spots patterns in stellar formation that I miss completely." The idea of involving family members in scientific research was completely foreign to Thalorian culture, where such work was left to trained specialists. But as the humans shared more stories, a different picture emerged, one of entire communities working together, sharing knowledge freely, and treating exploration as a family activity rather than a specialized profession. "Your people seem very adaptable," Yelthra observed carefully. Captain Kim laughed. "Had to be. When we first started exploring space, we didn't have all the fancy equipment that other species had developed over thousands of years. We had to make do with whatever we could build, fix, or borrow." "So you learned to improvise," Telwyn said, beginning to understand. "More than that," Kim replied. "We learned that sometimes the wrong way to do something works better than the right way, especially when things go sideways and your perfect plan falls apart. The rescue was going smoothly until the sensors started screaming." "Lieutenant?" Lee Hana looked up from her navigation console, her relaxed expression quickly turning serious. "Captain, we've got company," she announced, her fingers dancing across her controls. 6 ships, coming in fast from the outer edge of the gravity. "Well." Captain Kim moved to look over her shoulder, his casual demeanor instantly shifting to alert professionalism. On the tactical display, 6 sleek vessels were approaching through the chaos of the Nexus void, moving with the practiced ease of ships that knew these dangerous waters well. "Kethmori raiders," Captain Yelthra whispered, her blood running cold as the ship profiles appeared on their shared display. "How did they find us so quickly?" The Kethmori were nightmare stories made real. Pirates who hunted in the most dangerous regions of space, specifically because other species couldn't follow them. Their ships were built for speed and stealth, designed to strike isolated vessels and disappear back into cosmic hazards before any rescue could arrive. "They must have been tracking the distress beacon," Mordan said, his voice tight with fear. "Waiting for someone to respond so they could catch 2 ships instead of 1. The lead raider vessel opened communications, and a harsh voice filled both bridges. The Kethmori captain spoke in accented galactic standard, his words carrying the casual cruelty of someone used to getting his way. "Unknown vessels, you are now prisoners of the Crimson Claw raiding fleet. Surrender your cargo and prepare to be boarded. The alien crew will be processed for the slave markets. The humans will be allowed to leave if they cooperate, Captain. Yelthra felt her heart sink. The Stellar Echo was helpless, connected to the human ship by cables and unable to maneuver. Even if they could fight, Thalorian research vessels weren't built for combat. They were sitting ducks, but Captain Kim's response came immediately, his voice cheerful and completely unworried. "Counter-offer," he said, settling back in his command chair like he was negotiating the price of spare parts. "You folks turn around and head home, and maybe we won't turn your pretty ships into expensive scrap metal." The silence that followed was broken by harsh laughter from the Kethmori captain. "Humans, you pilot one small cargo vessel against 6 of our fastest raiders. Your bravery is admirable, but foolish." 6? Kim looked genuinely surprised. He turned to his crew. "Hannah, are you seeing 6 ships out there?" Lieutenant Lee checked her sensors again. "That's what I count, Captain." Though the readings are a bit fuzzy through all this interference, Kim nodded thoughtfully. "Well then, I guess we're having ourselves a proper fight today." He opened the ship-wide communication channel. "All hands, this is the captain. We've got pirates who want to play. You know the drill, keep the engines running and try not to scratch the paint too badly." The casual way he announced an upcoming battle left the Thalorian crew speechless. There was no panic, no desperate planning. Session, no dramatic speeches about fighting against impossible odds. The humans treated the approaching confrontation like it was just another part of their daily routine. "Are they insane?" whispered Telwyn. "Captain," Yelthra called urgently, "you don't understand. The Kethmori are some of the most dangerous pirates in the galaxy. They've been hunting in the Nexus Void for decades." Kim's smile was sharp and confident. "Ma'am, we've been living here longer than that." What happened next wasn't a battle in any traditional sense. It was pure chaos unleashed, with surgical precision. The moment the Kethmori raiders moved to attack positions, the Iron Will did something that defied every rule of space combat that Yelthra had ever learned. Instead of forming a defensive position or trying to retreat, Captain Kim's ship suddenly released the tow cables connecting it to the Stellar Echo and scattered into 6 different directions at once. "What are they doing?" Mordan gasped, watching the tactical display in confusion. The Iron Will had somehow split apart. What looked like one ship was actually 6 smaller vessels that had been connected together. Each piece flew off independently, twisting and diving through the gravitational chaos of the Nexus Void like they were dancing rather than fighting. "Modular design," Captain Kim's voice crackled through the comm, now coming from the lead section. "Seemed like a good idea when we built her. Makes repairs easier, and pirates never expect it. The Kethmori raiders tried to adapt, but their formation-based tactics fell apart immediately. They had been expecting to face one target, not 6 highly maneuverable ships that moved like a school of fish through the dangerous space around them." Lieutenant Yoon Sora's voice came through from one of the weapon pods. "Light them up, people. Remember, disable, don't destroy, we're not murderers." The human attack was unlike anything in military textbooks. Where other species engaged in calculated exchanges of fire, testing defenses, and looking for weaknesses, the humans fought like they were solving a mechanical problem with explosives. They targeted specific systems with frightening accuracy, knocking out engines on one ship, destroying weapon arrays on another, systematically dismantling the raider fleet's ability to fight back. But they avoided targeting life support or crew compartments entirely. "Surgical strikes," Chief Engineer Koldan whispered in amazement. "They're taking them apart piece by piece. The Iron Will's weapon systems looked as improvised as everything else on the human ships, but they worked with deadly efficiency. Lieutenant Yoon used mining lasers that had been modified for combat, cutting through raider armor like it was made of paper. Meanwhile, Engineer Choi Minho was doing something that made no sense at all. He was flying his section of the ship directly into the path of incoming fire, taking hits that should have disabled him instantly. "Why is he doing that?" Yelthra asked frantically. "Redundant systems," came Minho's cheerful reply over the comm. "This old girl can take a beating and keep on flying. Sometimes the best defense is just being too tough to kill." His section of the ship was absorbing damage that would have crippled any normal vessel. its patchwork hull designed to distribute impacts across multiple layers of armor and backup systems. Sparks flew from his control panels. Alarms were going off constantly, but he kept fighting. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, 4 of the 6 Kethmori ships were floating dead in space, their crews alive, but their vessels completely disabled. The other 2 were limping away into the depths of the Nexus void, their captains having decided that discretion was the better part of valor. The 6 sections of the Iron Will smoothly reconnected, transforming back into a single vessel as if nothing had happened. "Well, that was fun," Captain Kim announced calmly. "Anyone hurt over there?" The Thalorian crew sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. In the hours following the battle, as the Iron Will reconnected its tow cables to the stellar echo, the full impact of what the Thalorians had witnessed began to sink in. The human crew went about their post-combat routine with the same casual efficiency they showed for everything else, checking systems, making repairs, and sharing a meal as if they hadn't just defeated 6 notorious pirates in 17 minutes. "Damage report," Captain Kim called out, settling back into his command chair with a fresh cup of coffee. "Port thrusters are running a bit rough," Engineer Choi Minho replied, wiping grease from his hands. "And we burned through about half our spare armor plating. Nothing that won't fix itself with a little attention." Lieutenant Yoon Sora looked up from her weapons console. "All systems green here, Captain. Though I think we're getting low on mining charges. Used up most of them in that last maneuver." The casual way they discussed battle damage left Yelthra speechless. Her own crew was still processing the trauma of nearly being captured by slavers, while the humans talked about the fight like it was a minor inconvenience. "Captain Kim," she said carefully, "what you did back there, that wasn't normal combat tactics." Kim shrugged, taking a sip of his coffee. "Normal doesn't work out here. The Nexus Void changes the rules for everything. Navigation, engineering, fighting. You adapt or you die." Navigator Song Ji-won pulled up a holographic display showing their route through civilized space. "We should reach the edge of Thalorian territory in about 18 hours. Nice and easy from here on out." "This was easy?" Mordan asked weakly. "Pretty quiet week for us," Lieutenant Lee Hana admitted. "Usually we have to deal with at least 3 separate crises before breakfast. Pirates, engine failures, gravity storms, sometimes all at once." The revelation hit Yelthra like a physical blow. What her people considered impossible circumstances, stranded in the deadliest region of space, attacked by the galaxy's most feared pirates, was just another Tuesday for these humans. Chief Engineer Cole Dan was studying the human ship's design through their sensor readings, his expression growing more amazed by the hour. "Captain, their entire approach to engineering is completely different from ours. Where we design for perfection, they design for survival." It was true. Every system on the Iron Will had backups for the backups. Their hull wasn't elegant, but it could absorb damage that would destroy a more sophisticated vessel. Their weapons weren't the most advanced, but they worked reliably under conditions that would shut down high-tech systems. "We call it good enough engineering," Choi Minho explained when he overheard their conversation. "Why build something that works perfectly in ideal conditions when you can build something that works adequately in any conditions?" The philosophy was revolutionary. While other species spent centuries perfecting their technology for specific environments, humans had developed technology that could adapt to any environment. "Your people are remarkable," Yelthra said finally. "You don't just survive in hostile conditions, you thrive in them." Captain Kim looked genuinely surprised by the compliment. "We're just stubborn, I think. When something tries to kill you, you figure out how to kill it back. When space tries to crush you, you build ships that are too tough to crush." As they continued their journey toward safety, Yelthra found herself seeing everything differently. The humans' primitive methods weren't primitive at all. They were evolved, refined through generations of facing impossible challenges and refusing to give up. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity didn't see barriers. They saw interesting problems waiting to be solved. 3 days later, Captain Yelthra stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared to deliver the most important report of her career. The great assembly hall buzzed with concerned whispers. News of her rescue from the Nexus Void had already spread, but the details remained classified until now. "Honored council members," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber, "I stand before you today to report first contact with a previously unknown spacefaring species, one that will fundamentally change how we understand survival in the galaxy." The whispers stopped. Every representative in the hall leaned forward, giving her their complete attention. The species calls themselves humans, and they have been operating in regions we consider impassable for decades. What we call the Nexus Void, they call Route 7 a regular shipping lane. A Calarian representative stood up, his tentacles writhing with agitation. "Impossible. The Nexus Void has claimed hundreds of ships no known technology can navigate those gravitational anomalies safely." "That's exactly what I thought," Yelthra replied calmly, "but I watched them do it. Not only navigate through the chaos, but actually use the dangerous conditions to their advantage. They've turned the galaxy's most feared regions into their personal highways." She activated the holographic display, showing recordings from the rescue. The council watched in stunned silence as the human ship performed maneuvers that should have been suicidal, fought pirates using tactics that violated every rule of engagement, and treated impossible challenges like routine maintenance. The Zenthari defense minister rose from his seat, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "You're telling us that this human species regularly travels through areas where our most advanced military vessels fear to venture." "Not just travels through them," Yelthra emphasized. "They live there. They've mapped safe passages through cosmic phenomena that we've labeled as permanently hazardous. They've established trade routes through regions we abandoned as too dangerous to explore." She paused, letting the implications sink in before continuing. "But more importantly, they came to help us when no one else could." Captain Kim risked his ship and crew to save strangers from a species they'd never heard of, in conditions that would terrify most seasoned pilots. The council chamber erupted into discussion. Representatives argued in dozens of languages, trying to process what this meant for galactic civilization. A species that could go anywhere, do anything, and wasn't afraid to help others in need. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. The Galactic Council extended full diplomatic recognition to humanity, along with an invitation to join the interstellar community as equal partners. Within 6 months, human ships were appearing throughout the galaxy. Captain Kim himself became something of a celebrity, leading the first official human trade mission to the core worlds. His ship, still looking like it was held together with spare parts and determination, docked at the most prestigious spaceport in civilized space. "Welcome to the galaxy," Yelthra said as she greeted him at the airlock. Kim looked around at the sleek, pristine facilities and grinned. "Nice place you've got here. Very clean, very safe." "We like it that way," she replied. "Good for you," he said with a chuckle. "But if you ever need someone to handle the messy, dangerous stuff, the places where clean and safe don't work, you know where to find us." And with that simple statement, the galaxy became a much more interesting place. After all, when humans considered something routine, everyone else could finally breathe a little easier. The age of impossible things had just become possible.